The rain in Seoul didn't fall that night. It surrendered. Sheets of ice-cold water battered the corrugated roof of St. Augustine's orphanage like gunfire, turning the cracked windows into waterfalls. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered their death throes, casting long shadows that seemed to breathe. 10-year-old Nia Reynolds sat on the third step of the splintered wooden staircase, her knees drawn to her chest, her dark eyes fixed on the front door. She wasn't waiting for anyone. Waiting implied hope, and Nia had buried hope 3 foster homes ago, in a backyard in Busan where nobody spoke English and the other children had stolen her only photograph. The faded Polaroid of a woman she couldn't remember, whose face she had memorized until it blurred into myth. The door exploded inward. Not opened, exploded. Wood splintered, rain lashed inside like a living thing. And then he was there, filling the doorway, darkness given form. Kyung-min. The name meant nothing to Nia, but it meant everything to the director, Mrs. Park, who had been counting donations in the back office and now stood frozen in the hallway, her calculator slipping from nerveless fingers. He wore a black cashmere coat that drank the light. Water streamed from the brim of a hat pulled low, shadowing eyes that scanned the foyer with the detached assessment of a coroner. 6 men flanked him, their umbrellas abandoned, suits already darkening with rain, hands hovering near concealed weapons. But Nia didn't look at them. She looked at him. And he looked at her. The orphanage had seen wealthy donors before, guilty Christians, camera-hungry politicians, the occasional K-drama star seeking redemption. They arrived with smiles and left with tax receipts and photo ops. This man arrived like a funeral procession. 30 minutes, Kyung-min said. His voice was smoke and stone, low, cultured, utterly empty. Inspect the facilities, the board wants a full report. Mrs. Park scrambled forward, bowing so low her glasses slipped to the tip of her nose. Of course, Chairman Nam, we had no notice if we'd known. You wouldn't have changed anything. He stepped inside, rainwater pooling around imported leather shoes. That is precisely what I'm here to determine. Nia didn't move. On the step above her, Min-yi, a 12-year-old who taught her Korean curses and how to steal extra rice, whispered urgently, Nia, look down, look down. She didn't. Kyung-min's gaze traveled up the stairs, methodical as a rifle scope, past the cowering children, past the peeling paint and the water stains shaped like countries nobody visited, until it locked on her. Dark girl, foreign blood, sitting alone in a building full of orphans, meeting his eyes like he was the one who should be afraid. Something flickered. Not in his expression. His face remained a marble sculpture of aristocratic disdain, but in the pause. The microsecond before he looked away, something shifted in the air between them, heavy and electric as the moment before lightning strikes. He turned to Mrs. Park. The girl, 3rd step, black American. Nia, yes, she's been with us 4 years. No papers, no history. We think her mother was. I didn't ask for her biography. He removed his gloves, one finger at a time, revealing hands that looked carved from ice. I asked what she is. An orphan, Chairman, like the others. No, he said it softly, but the words seemed to settle in the room, coating everything in frost. Not like the others. He walked toward the stairs. His men didn't follow. Mrs. Park made a sound like a dying animal. Nia stood. She didn't mean to. Her legs moved without permission, unfolding from their protective curl, straightening until she faced him from 3 steps up. She was tall for 10, but he still towered, a monolith of expensive wool and ancient violence. Up close, she saw what the shadows hid. He was young, 35 maybe, 40 at most, but his eyes belonged to someone who had died decades ago and forgotten to lie down. They were the color of winter rivers, gray-green, cold, carrying secrets to the sea. You're not afraid, he observed, not a question. No, Nia lied. Why? She considered. The other children were pressed against walls, behind furniture, holding their breath. Mrs. Park had retreated to the kitchen doorway, ready to flee through the back. Even his own men watched with the wary tension of soldiers in a minefield. And Nia said, "Because you're already sad." The words fell into the space between them, like stones into deep water. Kyung-min went perfectly still. That terrifying, predatory stillness of something that didn't need to move to kill. Nia saw his jaw tighten, a muscle jumping beneath skin that had never known a genuine smile. "Sad," he repeated, tasting the word like poison. "Your eyes," she continued, because something had broken open in her chest, some reckless thing that didn't care about survival. "They're like mine. After I cry until I can't anymore, empty, but still wet inside." One of his men made a sharp movement, a hand on a weapon. Kyung-min raised one finger. The man froze. "You think you understand me, child?" The Mafia boss's voice had dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the room. "You think because you've suffered, you recognize suffering." "I think," Nia said, and her voice didn't shake, though her hands did, hidden in her too large sweater sleeves, "that you didn't come here to inspect anything. You came here to find out if you could still feel something, and you're angry because you can." The silence stretched into eternity. Then Kyung-min laughed. It was the most terrible sound Nia had ever heard, not because it was cruel, but because it wasn't. It was genuine, surprised, ripped from some buried place so long sealed that its emergence seemed to wound him. He laughed, and his men looked at each other with expressions of actual fear, and Mrs. Park made the sign of the cross despite being Buddhist. "Chairman," one man ventured, "the inspection." "Cancel it." Kyung-min was still looking at Nia, something new and dangerous moving in those frozen eyes. "Transfer the funding, triple the previous amount, anonymous." "Sir, the board wanted." "I am the board." He reached into his coat and withdrew a card, black as a funeral invitation, extending it toward Nia with 2 fingers. "My direct line, for emergencies." Nia didn't take it. "I don't have emergencies, I have life." Another laugh, softer this time, almost fond. He placed the card on the step beside her. "Then for life." He turned to leave, coat sweeping raindrops across the worn floorboards. At the door, he paused. "Nia." She hadn't told him her name. "The mark on your arm," he said without turning. "The birthmark. Has anyone ever told you what it looks like?" She touched her left forearm automatically, feeling through cotton the raised skin she hid from mirrors. "No." "Good." He stepped into the storm. "Keep it hidden." Then he was gone, and the orphanage seemed to exhale, and Nia stood alone on the stairs holding a black card that felt heavier than stone. If this story touches your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional billionaire redemption stories. The penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a building that cast shadows on government offices. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around 300 degrees of Seoul's glittering nightmare, the city spread below like a circuit board of human ambition. Kyung-min stood at the glass, watching rain turn to sleet, remembering a girl's eyes. "Boss," Yeho, his second-in-command, hovered at the edge of the room, careful not to cross the invisible line that separated conversation from punishment. "The orphanage transfer is complete. The director believes it's a corporate charity initiative." "She's not stupid. She'll investigate." "She's been paid not to." "Everyone can be paid more." Turned, and the city lights carved his face into planes of gold and shadow. "Find the girl's history, birth records, immigration, how she came to Korea. I want everything." Yeho hesitated. "The black girl, boss. With respect, we've got the D1 Group acquisition next week. The Russians are in town, and the old chairman's nephew is still making noise about succession. Maybe this distraction." Nam moved. He didn't seem to cross the space. He was simply there, his hand around Yeho's throat, lifting him onto his toes with the casual strength of someone who had done this 100 times and stopped counting. "Distraction," he repeated, his voice conversational, his eyes dead as taxidermy. Yeho choked, hands rising to claw at the grip that would leave bruises shaped like fingerprints. "I apologize, Chairman. I buried 300 people to build this empire." Nam released him, and Yiho collapsed to the marble, gasping. I've drowned men in their own bathtubs. I've made mothers watch their sons burn. Do you think any of it matters? Yiho shook his head, unable to speak. That girl looked at me and saw sadness. Nam returned to the window, his reflection a ghost against the city. Do you understand what that means? No, Chairman. It means I'm still human enough to hate myself. He pressed his palm to the cold glass. Find her history, now. The orphanage funding transformed St. Augustine's overnight. New heating systems, a commercial kitchen, computers that didn't wheeze when switched on, tutors who spoke English, who helped Nia with the language that had always felt borrowed, worn like hand-me-down shoes. She didn't see him for 3 months. But she felt him. In the anonymous delivery of winter coats, hers was black wool, lined with silk, sized perfectly despite no one measuring her. In the security cameras that appeared on street corners, their lenses always seeming to pause when she walked to school. In the dreams that weren't dreams, where she felt watched by winter-colored eyes. She asked Mrs. Park about him once. The director had paled, made the sign against evil, and whispered, He is Bangpyeon, the night market, the man who owns the shadows between buildings. Never speak of him, Nia, never. But Nia had never been good at never. It was April when he returned. Cherry blossom season, when Seoul turned pink and sentimental, when families picnicked under flowering trees and pretended the beauty made up for the hours they spent apart. Nia was in the new library, reading a book about astronomy, when the temperature dropped. She looked up. He stood in the doorway, different and the same. No coat this time, just a charcoal suit that probably cost more than the orphanage's annual budget. His hair was shorter, showing more of a face that looked like it had been beaten by time rather than fists. Thinner, older in 3 months than some men aged in decades. You didn't call, he said. You didn't give me a phone. He almost smiled, almost. The left corner of his mouth twitched, then remembered its duty and flattened. Resourceful, I appreciate that. Why are you here? Direct questions. No fear. Nia watched him process this, watched something like approval war with irritation in the micro-expressions he probably thought he controlled. I wanted to see if you were surviving my attention. Your attention pays for heat and food. Nia closed her book. I'm surviving. And thriving. I don't know what that means. He entered the room then, moving with the controlled grace of a predator who didn't need to hurry. He sat in the chair across from her, too small for him, ridiculous, and folded his hands on the table. Tell me about the mark on your arm. Nia's hand went to her sleeve. No. You're protective of it. I'm protective of me. The mark is part of that. Smart. He leaned forward, and she smelled expensive cologne and something else, something metallic and sharp. But I need to see it, Nia. Why? Because I think it's the reason I'm here, the reason I can't stop, he caught himself, a flash of anger directed inward. Show me, please. The word sounded experimental, unused. Please. Nia looked at this man who owned cities and destroyed lives, who had probably never said please to anyone, and she saw something she recognized. The desperation of needing to know, the terror of what that knowledge might bring. She pushed up her left sleeve. The birthmark covered her forearm from wrist to elbow, dark brown, raised slightly, shaped like something between a flower and a flame. She'd hated it forever, covered it with bracelets, bandages, long sleeves in summer heat. Other children had asked if it was a burn. Adults looked away. Nam Kyung-min looked like he'd been shot. His face drained of color. His hands, those elegant instruments of violence, began to shake. He reached out, stopped himself, pulled back as if the mark might burn him. Where? He whispered, and his voice had gone strange, thick with an accent she hadn't heard before, rural and raw. Where did you get this? I was born with it. Impossible. It's on my birth certificate. The one from the hospital in, she stopped because she didn't know. The orphanage had never told her. I don't know where I'm from. Nam stood so fast his chair scraped backward, shrieking against tile. He turned away, presenting his back, his shoulders heaving with breaths that seemed to tear themselves from his chest. "Leave," he said. "What?" "Get out, now, before I—" He slammed his palm against the window and cracks spiderwebbed from the impact. "Gio." Nia ran. But she looked back once from the doorway and saw the most feared man in Seoul sink to his knees, his forehead pressed against the broken glass, making sounds that might have been laughter or might have been weeping, in a language she didn't understand. He didn't come back for 6 weeks. But the gifts continued. Books, advanced physics, philosophy, poetry in 3 languages. A violin with a note in his precise handwriting. Music is mathematics made emotional. You seem capable of both. A jacket, black leather, sized for her growing frame, with pockets deep enough to hide anything. Nia wore the jacket everywhere. She was wearing it when she found him waiting outside her school, his black sedan blocking the alley like a hearse. The other children gave it wide berth, whispering, yakuza, mafia, gangster, all the words they'd learned from movies. Nia walked straight to the window. "You're crying," she observed. He wasn't. His face was its usual mask, but his eyes, red-rimmed, swollen, the eyes of someone who hadn't slept in days. "Get in," he said. "Where?" "Somewhere I can think. You're the only person who makes the noise stop." She should have said no. Mrs. Park's warnings, the other children's fear, every instinct developed in 4 years of orphanage survival screamed danger, predator, death. She got in. They drove to the Han River, to a spot where the water ran silver under bridge lights, where the city noise became a distant hum. Kyung-min sat on the hood of his car, improbably, impossibly, a billionaire crime lord in a $10,000 suit, sitting on metal like a teenager. Nia sat beside him. The leather jacket creaked. "I had a sister," he said to the water. "Younger, her name was Soo-min." Nia waited. She had learned that silence was its own language. "She was born when I was 7. I remember the day, my father drunk, my mother screaming, and then this tiny thing, red and angry, with a mark on her arm, just like yours. My grandmother said it was a blessing, a sign of old souls returning." He laughed, that terrible sound again. "She was 4 when they took her. I was 11. Men came to our village. This was before, when we were poor, when my father sold things he shouldn't have. They wanted payment. He gave them Soo-min." Nia felt something cold settle in her stomach. Gave. Sold, traded, what does the word matter? Nam's hands clenched on his knees. "I tried to stop them. They broke my arm, my ribs, left me in a rice field to die. I didn't die. I refused to die until I found her." "Did you?" 20 years. He turned to look at her, and his face was a ruin, all the careful control shattered. 20 years of building power, money, connections, of becoming the thing that could find anything, buy anyone, break any system. And 3 years ago, I found the trail. Nia didn't want to ask, asked anyway. "What happened?" "She died 6 months before I reached her. In a brothel in Macau, the mark on her arm, the one I remembered, the one I dreamed about, someone had tried to burn it off. Infection. Fever." His voice flattened, became the tone of a man reciting facts about weather. "She was 23. She had a daughter, also dead, also marked." The river flowed on, indifferent. "Your mark," he continued, "is identical, not similar. Identical. The shape, the placement, the way the pigment fades at the edges. I've had 3 doctors examine photographs. They say it's impossible. Genetic markers don't replicate across unrelated bloodlines with such precision." "I'm not your sister," Nia said gently. "I'm not Korean." "No, you're something else, something that shouldn't exist." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and touched her jacket sleeve where the mark hid beneath. "But when I look at you, I hear her voice. When you speak, I see her stubbornness. And when you showed me that mark—" He broke off, looked away. The mask reassembled itself, piece by piece, but cracks remained. "What do you want from me?" Nia asked. "I don't know." Honesty again, raw and dangerous. "To understand why the universe would show me this pattern twice, to punish myself with hope. To—" He stopped, shook his head. "To keep you safe, even if you're not her, even if you're no one. The idea of you existing with that mark in a world like this, it makes me want to burn the world down and build something else. That's a lot of feeling for someone emotionless. He almost smiled. You see through me. It's infuriating. Good. They sat in silence, watching the river, two people bound by a mystery neither could solve, finding temporary peace in shared confusion. This emotional billionaire mafia story explores themes of redemption, hidden family secrets, Korean underworld power, interracial adoption drama, and the unexpected bond between a ruthless mafia boss and a black orphan girl. Readers who love gripping crime romance, billionaire redemption arcs, and heart-wrenching emotional storytelling will be captivated by Kyung-min and Nia Reynolds' unforgettable journey. The summer brought storms and revelations. Kyung-min became a fixture at St. Augustine's, not openly, never officially, but in the spaces between. He arrived at midnight with books and food, left before dawn. He watched Nia practice violin through the library window, never entering, always present. He taught her chess. You're aggressive, he observed, studying the board between them. They sat in the orphanage garden, surrounded by hydrangeas that had grown wild with the new funding. You sacrifice pieces too easily. I don't see them as sacrifices. I see them as distractions. Ah, he moved his bishop, taking her knight. And what are you distracting from? Nia considered. She was 11 now, growing tall, her hair braided in cornrows she'd learned to do herself from YouTube videos. The black leather jacket had become her armor, her signature. Other children whispered that she was protected, that touching her meant answering to shadows. She didn't correct them. Why do you visit me? She asked. You're the only honest thing in my life. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. He captured her pawn, his movements precise, economical. Everyone else wants something, money, power, fear. You want. What? To understand why you're alive. Yes. So do I, he looked up, and the morning light caught the gray in his hair, premature, earned. We're alike in that. Two people searching for reasons in an unreasonable world. Nia moved her queen, putting his king in check. I'm not like you. I don't hurt people. Yet. I won't. You will. He didn't sound pleased. The world will demand it, and you'll discover that kindness is a luxury purchased with strength. I hope. He stopped, corrected himself. I hope you never learn this. Hope, Nia tested the word. You use it differently now. Do I? Before, you said you didn't hope. Now you hope for me. Kyung-min went still, the way he did when touched unexpectedly. Then, slowly, he reached across the board and touched her hand. Briefly, barely, a brush of fingers that felt like an admission. I hope for you, he agreed. It's terrifying. The autumn changed everything. Nia was in the city with Mrs. Park, running errands for the orphanage's expanded programs, when she saw the man following them. Not one of Nam's men. She knew their faces now, the careful way they occupied space, visible only when they wanted to be. This man was different. Slavic features, expensive sunglasses despite the overcast sky, a tattoo visible at his collar, some kind of spider. He'd been behind them since the subway. Mrs. Park, Nia said casually, I need to use the bathroom, the department store here. The chairman said you're not to go anywhere without. The bathroom, Mrs. Park, now. Something in her voice, learned from him, she realized, made the director comply. Inside the glittering department store, Nia didn't go to the bathroom. She went to the security desk, described the man, asked them to call the police. They looked at her dark skin, her orphanage clothes, and smiled patronizingly. She called the number on the black card. He answered on the first ring. Nia. There's a man following me. White, tall, spider tattoo on his neck. We're at the lot department store, ground floor. Go to the loading dock, east entrance, now. Nam. Now. She ran. The loading dock was a chaos of trucks and workers, crates of luxury goods being unloaded by men who didn't look up from their labor. Nia pressed herself against a concrete pillar, heart hammering, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. The spider tattoo man appeared at the door she'd come through. He wasn't alone. Two others, same look, same cold assessment. They spread out, methodical, professional. "Little girl," the first one called, his Korean accented thick. "We just want to talk about your friend, the Korean." Nia said nothing. Her hand found a piece of rebar on the ground, heavy, rusted. "Your mark," the man continued, advancing. "We know about the mark. We've been looking for it for a long time. Did you think you could hide, that he could hide you?" They were 10 feet away, 5. The east door exploded inward. Not metaphorically. Actually exploded, the metal frame twisting, smoke billowing, and through it came Kyung-min like vengeance itself, a pistol in each hand, his face transformed into something that wasn't human anymore. He didn't speak, he moved. The first man died before he could raise his weapon, a single shot between the eyes, casual as breathing. The second tried to run and took 3 bullets in the back. The third, the spider tattoo man, managed to fire once, the bullet sparking off concrete near Nia's head, before Nam was on him, pressing him against a delivery truck with a forearm to the throat. "Who sent you?" The voice was ice, absolute zero. "The Russians, the triads, speak and I'll make it quick." The man laughed, blood bubbling at his lips. "You think you can protect her? We know what she is, what the mark means. The network, it's bigger than you, Bangpyeon. She's a product, inventory, and you've been stealing." Nam's expression didn't change. His hand moved, and something flashed, and the man screamed, high and animal. "Inventory," Nam repeated. "Call her that again." She's coded, there are others." The knife moved again. The screaming stopped. Nam turned. Nia stood frozen, the rebar forgotten, staring at the bodies, the blood, the man she thought she knew transformed into this efficient instrument of death. He was covered in red. It dripped from his chin, his hands soaked his shirt. He looked at her, and she saw it, the moment he realized what she'd witnessed. The shame, ancient and immediate, flooding those winter eyes. "Nia." "Don't," she backed away. "Don't come near me." "I had to." "You enjoyed it." The words tore out of her. 11 years of buried observation, of reading adults, of survival through understanding. "I saw your face. You were happy." He flinched, actually flinched as if struck. "Not happy," he said, but his voice was uncertain, lost. "Alive. I feel alive when," he stopped, looked at his hands. Yes, I enjoyed it, because they threatened you, because for one moment the monster I've become had purpose." "You're not a monster," Nia's voice shook. "You're a man who chooses to be one, and I—" She looked at the dead men, at the blood pooling toward her shoes. "I can't be near you, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." She ran. He didn't follow. But she heard him, as the elevator doors closed, making a sound that might have been her name, or might have been a prayer in a language she didn't speak. She avoided him for 2 months. The orphanage received word that corporate restructuring had ended the funding. The new computers stayed, the heating, the improvements, paid for through a different shell company, one she couldn't trace to him. But he didn't come. She told herself this was good, healthy. The man was a killer, a criminal, dangerous in ways that should have terrified her from the first moment. She dreamed about him every night. In the dreams, they sat by the river. He taught her chess. He touched her hand. And always, he looked at her mark with eyes full of something she was too young to name but old enough to need. December brought the first snow. Nia was walking home from school, her black jacket inadequate against the wind, when the sedan appeared. Not his usual car, older, nondescript. The window rolled down. Yi-ho, his second in command, still bearing the faded bruises from their last encounter. "He's dying," Yi-ho said without preamble. Nia stopped, snow caught in her eyelashes. The old chairman's nephew, the Russians, everyone who was waiting for weakness. Yi-ho's voice was flat, professional, but his hands gripped the steering wheel white-knuckled. He stopped caring, stopped fighting, just waits in the penthouse, drinking, not eating. "Why are you telling me?" "Because you're the reason. Yiho finally looked at her, and his expression was complex. Resentment, fear, something almost like pleading. He says your name in his sleep. He says he's poison and you were the only antidote, and now you've seen what he is and it's over. Take me to him. He won't want. Take me. The penthouse smelled of whiskey and decay. Nia had never seen it like this. The careful minimalism destroyed. Broken glass, overturned furniture, curtains drawn against the city he once commanded. And in the center, on the floor where his throne-like chair should be, Kyung-min sat with his back to the window, a bottle in his hand, a gun within reach. He looked up when she entered, and his eyes cleared for just a moment, just long enough to show her what she'd done. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "It's not safe." "You're drunk." "Trying to be, failing." He laughed, that broken sound. "I keep seeing their faces, the men I killed, not remorse, nostalgia, for when violence meant something, when protecting someone mattered." Nia crossed the debris field, knelt before him, close enough to smell the alcohol and underneath it, him. The cologne, the metal, the cold. "You scared me," she said. "I know. You enjoyed killing." "Yes. But you also came for me. You risked everything. You," she touched his hand, the one not holding the bottle, felt him freeze. "You sat by a river and told me about your sister. You learned to hope. That man is real too." Nam looked at their joined hands. His were shaking, hers steady. "I buried my heart years ago," he whispered. "Then why does it beat when you look at me?" The bottle fell. His free hand came up, hovering near her face, not touching, trembling. "Because you're not her," he said, and tears tracked through the stubble on his cheeks, shocking, impossible. "You're not Soo-min. You're not her daughter. You're someone new, someone I chose, and that choice, it broke something open. I don't know how to be what you need. I only know how to destroy. Then destroy the things that hurt me." Nia leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his, the way she'd seen families do, the way she'd always wanted. "Not the people, the systems, the reasons I'm an orphan, the trafficking, the selling of children, the marks that make us inventory. You have power. Use it for this. For you. For everyone like me, everyone like Soo-min." She pulled back, looked into his eyes, saw the man beneath the monster. "Be my father, not by blood, by choice. The choice you said broke you open." Kyung-min wept. Not the controlled tears of before, but great, heaving sobs that seemed to tear him apart, rebuilding him in the process. He pulled her close, careful of his strength, burying his face in her jacket, the jacket he'd given her, and held on like she was the only real thing in a world of ghosts. "I don't know how," he gasped. "Neither do I. Will learn." The war started in spring. Kyung-min emerged from his penthouse changed, not softer, but focused. The drinking stopped. The violence became strategic, directed at networks he'd once profited from. Child trafficking routes collapsed. Brothels burned. Men who'd operated with impunity for decades found themselves hunted by the very system they'd thought they controlled. Nia watched from the orphanage, following the news, receiving coded messages. Safe, progress, soon. She was 12 when they came for her properly. Not the Russians. Nam had dismantled their Seoul operations, cost them millions, made the cost of her mark too high. This was internal. The old chairman's nephew, Park Jun-seo, making his move for control, understanding finally that Nam's weakness had a name and an address. They took her from school. Professional fast, a van with blacked windows. Nia didn't scream. She'd learned that screaming wasted energy. She watched, memorized routes, waited. They brought her to a warehouse near the port, tied her to a chair. Park Jun-seo appeared, handsome, smiling, holding a tablet showing live footage of Nam's penthouse. "He's coming, of course," Park said pleasantly. "He always comes for you. The great Kyung-min reduced to a father's foolishness. Do you know what this means?" "That you're going to die," Nia said. Park laughed. "Brave, he chose well. But you misunderstand the game, little girl. I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to return you to the network. Your mark, did you think it was random? It's a brand, a product code. There are buyers who have been waiting years for a specimen like you." He touched her sleeve. and she felt her skin crawl. Your father thought he could protect you by destroying the supply chain. But demand, you see, demand persists. And when he arrives, when he sees you transferred to a shipping container bound for Dubai, when he knows that every moment of his power couldn't stop this, Park smiled. Then I'll kill him, and he'll die knowing he failed, again, just like with his sister. Nia said nothing. She was counting. Nam's men had taught her, count guards, count weapons, count seconds, 12 guards, automatic weapons. She had her jacket, her hands tied in front, not behind. And she had the knife in her pocket, the one Nam had given her for her 12th birthday, small and sharp and hidden in a seam. You're wrong about him, she said, working the blade free, slice by slice through the tape. Am I? He doesn't fail, he learns. The warehouse door exploded. Not opened, exploded. Nam Kyung-min walked through smoke and fire, and he was smiling. Not the terrible laugh smile, but something colder, more final. He was alone, unarmed, it seemed, just a man in a black coat walking toward death. Let her go, he said, and I'll make your death quick. Park drew his pistol. You're unarmed, surrounded, have you lost your mind? I've found it. Nam stopped 10 feet from Nia, not looking at her, keeping Park's attention. You think power is guns, money, soldiers, I thought so too. Then I met someone who taught me otherwise. He moved. Nia had never seen him move like this. Not the efficient violence of the loading dock, but something transcendent. He was everywhere, disarming the nearest guard, using the weapon to drop 2 others, moving through gunfire that seemed to miss by millimeters, by intention. But there were 12, and he was 1. A bullet took him in the shoulder. He didn't slow, another in his leg. He kept moving. Park fired, screaming, and the bullet meant for Nia's head took Nam in the chest instead, spinning him around, dropping him to his knees. No, Nia screamed, the tape finally parting, the knife in her hand. She moved without thought. The guard nearest her, reaching for his weapon, distracted by the chaos, took her knife in his thigh. She took his gun. She'd never fired one, but she'd watched, she'd learned, she'd survived. The shot took Park in the shoulder, spinning him, his weapon flying. And then Nam was up again, somehow, impossibly, blood pouring from 3 wounds, his hand around Park's throat, lifting him, ending him with a sound like wet paper tearing. Silence. Nia stood in the center of 12 bodies, holding a smoking gun, her mark visible where her sleeve had torn, her father's blood pooling around her shoes. Nam turned to her, fell to his knees, reached out. You, he whispered, are the bravest person I've ever known. You're shot. Yes, he smiled, real and warm and fatting. But I chose you, and I would choose you again, and again, until there are no more choices left. She caught him as he fell. The hospital was white and beeping, and full of men who bowed when she passed. Nia didn't leave his side. She slept in the chair, ate when forced, watched the monitors that measured his life in green lines and numbers. The doctors spoke of miracles. 3 bullets, any one fatal, none finding their mark in anything vital. He's too stubborn to die, the chief surgeon told her, not knowing who she was, only that the chairman's men treated her like royalty. Nam woke on the 3rd day. His first word, Nia. His second, safe. Always, she promised, taking his hand, careful of the IV. Because of you. Not me. His voice was sand and smoke, but his eyes were clear. You, the gun, the knife, you saved yourself. I just bought time. That's what fathers do. He stared at her. The word hung in the air, heavy with meaning, with choice, with everything they'd built through blood and silence and riverside conversations. Say it again, he whispered. Father, Nia leaned close, pressing her forehead to his, the way they'd done in the penthouse, the way that meant family. Appa, Dad, whatever you need, you chose me. I choose you. That's what family is. Nam Kyung-min closed his eyes. Tears escaped, tracked into his hair, into the pillow. I don't deserve. Neither do I. We'll be undeserving together. The recovery took months. Nam used them to remake his world. The Bangpyeon didn't dissolve, it transformed. Legitimate businesses multiplied. The underground routes he'd controlled became pipelines for rescue operations, for tracing missing children, for destroying the very markets he'd once supplied. Nia became his public daughter. Not hidden, not secret. She attended meetings with him, learned the business, argued strategy. She was 13 when she identified a corruption scheme his own accountants had missed. 14 when she negotiated her first treaty between rival factions, using words instead of weapons, finding solutions in the spaces where violence had been the only language. "You could take over," Yeho told her once, watching her review contracts. "When he's ready to step down, the men would follow you." "I don't want his power," Nia said. "I want his peace." She found it gradually. In the house they built outside Seoul, modern and glass-walled, surrounded by trees that changed with seasons. In the dinners where they argued about philosophy and music and whether aliens existed. In the silences that were comfortable, finally, because they were shared. On her 15th birthday, Nam gave her a file. "Your history," he said. "Everything I could find." Nia opened it carefully. Birth certificate. Her mother's name, finally, a woman named Nia Reynolds, Nigerian-American, a student in Seoul who'd died in childbirth, who'd had the same mark, who'd been running from something when she ran into Nia's father's arms. "She loved you," Nam said. "The file includes her journals. She wanted you to have them when you were ready." "And my father?" "Unknown, possibly dead, possibly," he hesitated. "Possibly connected to the same network that marked you. I've found connections, suggestions, but nothing certain." Nia closed the file. Looked at this man who'd become her father in every way that mattered, who'd killed for her, who'd learned to hope, who sat across from her with worry in his winter eyes. "Then we'll find out together," she said. "Or we won't. It doesn't change who I am, who I choose to be." "Who is that?" She smiled. The first time she'd truly smiled, he thought, since the night they met. "Nia Reynolds, daughter of Amara who loved me, daughter of Nam who chose me, marked but not defined by the mark." She touched his hand, the scarred one, the one that had killed and saved and learned to cook terrible pancakes on Sunday mornings. Loved, finally completely loved. Nam pulled her close. This girl who'd looked into his emptiness and seen sadness, who'd taught him that monsters could become men, that choice mattered more than blood, that family was built, not born. "I buried my heart years ago," he murmured into her hair. "And I dug it up," she finished. "You're welcome." Outside, Seoul glittered, imperfect, struggling but still standing. And in a house of glass and light, two people who shouldn't have found each other laughed through tears, choosing once again to hope. This powerful emotional story of a Korean mafia billionaire and a black orphan girl highlights redemption, found family, hidden pasts, and unconditional love. Fans of dramatic billionaire fiction, crime family sagas, and emotionally gripping storytelling will find this unforgettable journey between Nam Kyung-min and Nia Reynolds deeply moving and impossible to forget. If this story moved you, comment your thoughts below and share it with someone who believes even the coldest hearts can learn to love.